Ancient mystics believed a man who guided his seed could bend reality. Today, physicists are finding that thought itself behaves much like a force. Put those together, and chastity becomes an occult law of gravity, making the world fall into your orbit. So it's remarkable to me how little attention a lot of these physicists, or let's just say for sake of argument, the scientific studies and experiments that have been done that run congruent with this particular point, beginning with Dr. William Tiller, a Stanford physicist who showed that focused human intention could actually alter the pH of water. Experiments reported by Tiller and his colleagues demonstrated that the pH of water could be changed by as much as 1 full unit or more, a significant shift that could not be attributed to any faulty measurement. Or equally, we could talk about the far more interesting Maharishi effect, claimed that when groups of meditators focused on peace, crime rates literally dropped. The foundational prediction was made in 1960, stating that 1% of a population practicing TM or transcendental meditation would produce measurable improvements in the quality of life for the whole population. And this was first documented in 1976, which found that when a 1% of the community practiced TM, the crime rate was reduced by an average of 16%, also known as the Maharishi effect, or Maharishi. And the most compelling, the most famous is the double slit experiment. I am sure you've heard of this before. If you haven't, this is arguably one of the most remarkable scientific experiments that has ever been done. So it showed that when particles like electrons are fired through 2 slits, they created a interference pattern as if they were waves passing through both slits at once. But when observed, the patterns vanished and the particles behaved more like solid bullets. And this proved that observation itself changes reality. So the really interesting idea of the experiment is, if you accept the conclusion of this experiment as true, and it is true, every experiment that has been observed or unobserved has a degree of influence if it is the former, meaning if the experiment is observed, you are having an influence. Your consciousness influences the experiment. So in many ways, when we talk about, when we propose an experiment like a hypothesis, just the proposal, just the idea that, I mean, what is a hypothesis? It is, I think, due to a culmination of anecdotal and previous scientific experiments or observations of reality, that if we were going to try to measure this, I think this will happen. Just you thinking something has an influence on the likelihood of it happening. So this is kind of the setup. Fire particles at a barrier with 2 parallel slits. Behind the barrier is a screen which shows where the electrons or photons land. The strangeness is, if one slit is open, particles behave like bullets. You get a single band on the screen where they pile up. If 2 slits are open with no observation, instead of 2 bands, you get an interference pattern, kind of like waves overlapping, which means that each particle somehow behaves like a wave going through both slits at once and interfering with itself. However, if you observe which slit they go through, the interference pattern disappears. You only get 2 bands as if the particles knew they were being watched. The implication? Particles exist in a wave of probabilities until they are measured or observed. Observation collapses these waves into a definitive outcome. It blurs the line between a particle and a wave, and between physical reality and conscious observation. And here you can kind of see a very crude outcome of what that looks like. So how does this relate in relation to SR? Thought is vibration, vibration is creation. SR having a variety of different positive outcomes in your life, from improved dopamine sensitivity, magnetism, masculine gene expression, and synchronicity. But I really want to talk about this one pointed mind outcome, which is supported, by the way, by various different, what would you say, systems other than scientific rationale from Hermeticism, alchemy, the Kabbalah, and Christian mysticism, but also occult modernists. I'll just take you through a couple here. The Kybalion principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Alchemy, sexual and hermetic. Seed is prima materia, raw life force. The alchemy refines it into higher states of being, turning base instinct into gold. And this is from Paracelsus and Flamel. Transmutation isn't just in metals, but the human being refining mercury or mind, sulfur, desire, and salt, body, into a unified, radiant whole. The Kabbalah, Yesod, connected to sexual energy, imagination, and the subtle astral light. Retention refines Yesod's energy upwards into Tirafet and Kether. Thought vibrations here mean shaping the astral light, which occultists believe directly informs material reality. Christian mysticism. So this is when, again, it's hard to say with any definitiveness, but when chastity was taken a little bit more seriously into the doctrine of Christianity, St. Augustine and St. Anthony being examples of this, they described it as their armor of light. Their visions and miraculous influence were attributed to their purity. The Logos doctrine. So in the beginning there was the Word. The word vibration creates reality. A chaste vessel channels divine Logos, the Word, more potently. And when we talk about occult modernist, I know a lot of people don't like that word, but forgive me for those of whom I've already told, but for those who are unaware, occult literally means knowledge hidden from the masses and only few are privy to. There is nothing innately dark about the vernacular of the word occult. When we talk about sexual magic, we have to talk about Aleister Crowley. His great work is sublimating sex into will. Wasted seed is lost current. A retained seed becomes magically charged that empowers thought forms. Described imagination as wand of miracles when sexual and vital energy were consecrated rather than dispersed. And again, it's really interesting when you talk about, again, most modern people's ideas when they talk about occultism being attributed to something dark, but there's nothing dark in that particular interpretation. In fact, it's congruent with Christianity, Kabbalah, alchemy, Hermeticism. I mean, I could have gone into more here. I didn't even talk about Vedic, Vedantic, or other influences here, but I can if you want. Fundamentally, what's the point that both the scientific side and the more mystic or religious or spiritual side are coming to congruent? That all these things that we aspire to chase in this world, be it money, be it fame, be it influence, comes at a combination of coherence. Coherence is one-pointed mind, being very clear on the specifics of what it is that you choose to or wish to choose to bring into this reality. This is your aim, and in life you have to aim. Your vision has to be crystal clear on where you are aiming. Vibration is synonymous with energy, which is your vitality, which is your prima materia, your raw life force. You need to have weight behind your aim. You need to have fuel behind your aim. If you are going to point your bow at a target, the vibration is how much tension and tautness you can pull the arrow back in your bow. And that's your sexual vitality. A lot of people maybe have clarity in where they want to go, but they have no fuel behind that aim. And the manifestation comes at the consequence of the combination of these two is coherence and vibration creates manifestation. This is my problem with a lot of the, I think the politest way to describe them is pseudo-reality creators is they do a lot of work on coherence. And to be honest, it's good work, right? get clear on where you want to go, but the vibrational aspect of it is your energy, is your vitality, is your libido, is your virility. You can point the bow and arrow wherever you want to go, but you still need to have the strength and power, vibration and energy behind where you want to go. And that is not a theory, that's a fact. Speak soon.